Now I'm sure you can recognise just as well as I can that we're back working on the command line of our CentOS 7 machine. But let's just give ourselves a stretch out those fingers and get ourselves ready to start seeing some of the magic of the autofs. So the autofs is a client-side service. We could have this running on all of our clients, but equally we could just configure it on one server, and we might then SSH remote into this machine and then being able to automatically connect to shares on all of our Linux servers within the estate. Well, in fact, not just to Linux servers, be able to connect to all of our shares within the estate, and quite automatically. And that's what we're going to be looking at with this autofs service. So it's a client-side utility, but there's no reason why we shouldn't have this running on a server. The first thing we're going to do is run the show mount command so we can see the exports on an NFS server. This is a remote machine, the 192.168.0.65 machine, and we can see that it has an export or a share, and that's the PDF directory. Now we're not going to be concerned with the NFS server at the moment, but all we want to do is be able to identify the shares or exports on that machine. Once we've been able to identify this, we're going to start seeing how easily we can create configurations or even use the default configuration to be able to connect or mount directories to this automatically. In the same way, we don't need to be concerned with unmounting or U-mounting these directories. We can allow the system or the autofs service to do this for us. The control files for this are in the etc directory, as you would expect, but we can list them really with the auto star command. So here, ls/etc/auto. And we're really mainly concerned here with the auto.master. The auto.master is our main configuration and will make references to other configurations such as the auto.misc, the auto.net, etc. So we're going to start taking a look at how these configurations can work. But pretty much without any configuration, so long as our autofs service is running, if we go through and create the net directory and then move into that net directory, we're probably not going to be surprised that when we do a listing here that it is empty. However, the controls for this are in the auto.net configuration. And when I move into the directory 192.168.0.65, a directory, remember, that doesn't exist, I can go into that directory and then run a listing, and I can see then the PDF export. And of course, in listing the contents of that PDF directory, we see all of the documentation that exists in that share. So we just created a single directory, but within that single directory, we were able then to connect into our server and all of the shares on the server. And this really is just a little bit of magic. If we move into the etc directory, we can start seeing how this is configured. So in here, we can see that we've got a configuration for the /misc directory and the /net directory. If we move back up to the misc directory, and let's create a configuration for ourselves. We're going to say that if we go through to the corp directory, this might represent all of our corporate shares, no matter on what server or what the share is called. And then we can go through and read in the configuration for that directory from the auto.corp configuration file, and if required we can set a separate timeout. Here we're going to use a timeout of 600 seconds rather than the default 300 seconds. So after moving away from this directory, we will disconnect after 10 minutes. We need now to configure the auto.corp file, so we're going to copy across the auto.misc file through to auto.corp just to give us a template to start working with. And we'll go through and edit the auto.corp file. So we can see then some configurations. We've got a CD directory, which we don't particularly need, so let's delete this. We can see some samples here, but I'm just going to add in a new line representing then what I want to do. So I'm going to put in then an entry for PDF. So if we change into the PDF directory, We're then going to set some mount options. So we're going to use then the FS type being NFS. So we're using the NFS version 3 protocol here. And we can start putting other mount options dependent on what we need for that file system mount. But again, we see other examples from the line above. We can then put in the server that we want to connect to, so 192.168.0.65, and the share that we're going to. The share name and the subdirectory name PDF don't have to match. So we can jump out and save that file. As we were saying before, that the service must be running, but in the same way, if I make a change to the configuration, we must restart or reload the service. If we check, though, the configuration that we've made, so if I go through and check for corp within the auto.master, we can see the master file represents then the configuration we want for the corp directory. And we don't reference corp at all within our auto.corp file. We mention then the subdirectories to corp. And we can see here the PDF directory that we're creating. But also I can see a little mistake here. We can see we've got a little bit of typo. So thank you very much for pointing that out. Yes, you there on the third row. Thank you very much. So let's go back and make an edit to that. So using !vi, we can go back and run our last command that started with vi, run through the edit. So putting a dot in, typing was never my strong point. Go out and save the change. So now that we've reviewed the configuration and we're happy with it, we can go through and restart the AutoFS. So we're using systemctl here because we're on a CentOS 7 system. You might use the service command if you're using, let's say, Ubuntu or CentOS 6. So with that set, the same way pretty much with the net directory, we can move through and take a look in the corp directory. So of course, when we list it, there's nothing there, and it won't change if I move into the directory. So we're not going to create any mounts just by moving into the directory. It is still empty. So we can now move into the PDF directory that doesn't exist. And when I list the content, of course, we can start seeing those PDF files. Now in here, we've put our timeout of 600 seconds. So when we move out of the directory 10 minutes later, we're then going to U-mount this share. So hopefully you like the magic of the AutoFS and are going to use it. But for the moment, let's drop back to our slides.